前一集我们提到了跟表现型的人进行 performance review 所要注意的，那今天就来聊喜欢独立思考以及重视逻辑的 driver， 也就是行动型。如果你的老板或者是同事是属于这种沟通风格的人， then this is an episode for you.Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管与沟通力的 Podcast。I'm Sherry, an educator, certified coach, and style enthusiast. 我相信专业有效的沟通是语言跟逻辑的完美结合。
And I'm Nick, a startup consultant, corporate trainer, and late-night gaming junkie. I believe great communication requires the right mindset and solid frameworks.
我们希望带给大家职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。
Join us each week as we share our experience, research, and methodologies to take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Executive Plus podcast. Last week, we talked about what it's like for an expressive to either give or receive a performance review. Today, we're going to continue our journey throughout the styles and getting a better sense of how your communication style can affect the way that you converse with others about a performance review. And today, we're going to dive into the driver.
So again, we wanted to make sure that the performance review works to your advantage. You can't be the one that is giving performance review or you're the one that received performance review. And we wanted to make sure that we can provide you some tips and tricks on just how to receive feedbacks or give feedback that really makes sense to you and actually give you the most value.
So as a reminder, the driver is high on assertiveness, they are more tell-oriented, and they are low on responsiveness, which means they are more controlled of their emotions. And really, going through these dimensions of communication should give you a strong sense of how the driver is going to handle both giving and receiving feedback. Drivers are people who thrive on key points. So when it comes to the feedback review, let's just get started with what it would be like if your boss is a manager or the person giving you the performance review is a driver. They're going to have a tendency to just outline their key points. Here are the areas I think you're doing well. Here are the areas that I think you need improvement. And they're really going to structure it in that way. Here's the key point. Here's the key idea.
所以很喜欢这些很简洁有力的，而且是 straight to the point 的这个 driver。当他们在给这个 performance feedback 的时候，当然一定也会是非常的 direct， 非常的 concise。但是有的时候也会有一些所谓的 WH question. Nick does this quite a lot. When you're giving feedback, you're also asking a lot of questions so that you can, definitely move the conversation forward. So 我觉得很多的 WH question 通常都是像, what is the goal or what do you want it to see or what do you want, what is the success for you, right? 所以通常我觉得在driver 他们在给 feedback 的时候，这一些是你常会听到的。
And so one of the things that you have to consider is if your style is not driver, but the person giving you your performance review is driver, is that they have a pretty tight structure or they have a pretty tight end goal in mind of how they would like the session to go. And if you want to open it up because you're another style, last week we talked about expressives. Expressives have the need to have more of a conversation. Drivers will structure the review as though it's a conversation, but it really is going to be more of a bullet point of what they're trying to get through and may not be in consideration of letting the other person explore their feelings in the session. It may be more like, here, if you can answer these questions or you can receive this feedback later, we can have a conversation.
那当然如果你今天是 driver， 那你要给 performance review 的时候，我觉得有一些事情当然要稍微注意，也就是因为 driver 通常对于情感 emotion 的表露它不是这么的强烈。Again, you don't see much of an emotion from drivers, especially at work. 那所以当他在给 feedback 的时候，如果今天是一个稍微比较 negative feedback， 我觉得 driver 他不太会budget 一个时间，就是 让对方有一些 emotion return. Because since it's a negative feedback, a lot of times, especially for 我们在讲 expressive 跟 amiable 好了, emotion will come. You can see it in our face. But as a driver giving feedback, if you don't allow that time for the emotion to kind of, for people to digest the emotion or just reflect, I think you will lose that chance to really connect with someone. So that is something I think drivers need to kind of be aware of.
Yeah, so especially if you're the driver giving that performance review, a lot of drivers will think in terms of like, all right, it's only going to take me about 30 minutes to get through their performance review. But a lot of that is being more budgeted towards, this is the amount of time that I think is necessary to cover all the material. But leaving that buffer zone and knowing that certain people's communication styles, they do need to talk back. Let's say in terms of an expressive, they need that opening in order to have the back and forth and think out loud. Or as Sherry said, in the case of an amiable or an expressive, there is an emotional component, especially with the negative feedback. Even positive feedback, they may want to dwell in that feedback. But if you're like, all right, so here's all the things that you did great, keep it up, keep it. But sometimes people need to sit and then feel that appreciation, feel that validation. So if you're like, I can do this in a tight 30, you may want to rethink, okay, that's how long it takes me to get through this information. But how long would it take for someone else to absorb properly what's going on or ask the questions of what's going on? So maybe what you think is a tight 30 really needs to be a 45-minute or a 1-hour conversation with the person.
Yeah. 所以一定要记得，因为有很多的人他可能尤其是在这个 performance review 的时候，因为通常一定是1对1嘛，在1对1的时候他其实需要跟他的上属有一些 connection 的。This is the time they want to build that connection with their boss. So allowing that time, allowing that space, it's really important, especially when you're leading a team with a lot of different kind of communication style.
Another thing to keep in mind on the same vein is that drivers tend to be very action-oriented. So when they're talking about like action steps for improvement or making a plan for making adjustments, they may be thinking in terms of, okay, either I'm going to give it to you or it should be fairly obvious to you what kind of plan you can make. But for certain other styles, let's say an analytical often needs more details in what that means. So since a driver is someone like key information, like here's the improvement action, here's a milestone that I'd like you to come back and have a discussion with me, that may seem fairly obvious in the driver's head, or they may be pushing for, oh, okay, well, we'll just get to the next step. But in the case of like an analytical, they need time to explore and ask a lot of questions. Like, okay, if this is going to be my new KPI, are we going to set that down? Can I come back to you and ask you about it? Are there any references or examples of how you've seen other people improve in the past? So again, it's back to that. You got to leave time and room open for other communication styles to really feel comfortable walking out, that they know what the next step is, or that they understand what your measures of success might be. And amiables and analyticals are going to need that time, but one of the hard things is they may not be as upfront about their question asking. They may be waiting for you to finish so they can absorb that information, and then they'll ask questions. But if you're just like, oh, okay, well, you seem to get it, you can go now, you're going to lose that opportunity for these styles who need more information, but are less aggressive with gathering that information to process and then ask what they need to ask.
那如果今天我们角色兑换 ，driver 是在接收这些反馈、接收这个 performance review 的角色。So Nick, as a driver, how do you like to receive feedback? Let's say your upper manager is actually someone who is not a driver. For you, you want that very specific, concise information, but you're not getting that. How do you make that into something more valuable for you?
This is similar to the advice we gave to expressives, which is if your communication style is very different from the person giving you the review, you should be prepared to structure the performance review in a way that makes sense to you. Not as a way to like interrupt the person giving you the performance review, but knowing that however they structure it may not be how you prefer it to be structured. So you should walk in and set some of those expectations early. So in the case of if you're a driver and let's say the manager giving you the performance review is an analytical, you should be prepared that it's just going to be a lot of information. This is a style that thrives on having the most complete amount of information, but it may not be structured into key points, key takeaways, key actions. So you need to be prepared to ask the questions. Meaning is like, I've heard you cover a lot of these things. Could you tell me one or two of them that you would like to see me prioritize, or one or two of things that you would like me to see improvement on so that you know that I'm making progress? You're going to have to ask a question and ask them to either reorganize or restructure all that information.
所以其实如果你今天是 driver， 你还是有一些很多的机会可以去让它整个的结构是照你的方式来。Expressive, amiable 的人其实蛮注重这整个的气氛，所以他们其实是蛮会，比如说 driver 今天说，我需要接收 information 是这样的方式。其实我觉得 expressive 跟 amiable 都还蛮会去调整自己的，尤其是 amiable。那 expressive 当然就稍微比较会话比较多一点啦，有的时候是一边讲一边想，所以可能 driver 的话，你就是必须要帮助 expressive 稍微去 condense 一下，或者是 to filter information.
Right. So, the opposite of what we talked about earlier was true, is if a driver walks into a performance review, they're thinking in terms of like, all right, in about 30 minutes, they can tell me everything that I have done well, everything that I need to improve on, and I'll get out there and I'll start taking action. But when they find that, let's say in terms of an amiable continues to talk about the team. So as a driver, you might be like, okay, what does this have to do with me? Like, okay, I'm glad that the team is working well or not working well, but how do you want me to take action? But again, understanding the other communication side and asking the right questions. Be like, okay, I understand that it's very important to you that the team is synergizing or the team is working well. What would you like to see in order to know that the team's culture or the team's ability to work together is improving, and how can I help that? Right? Being more structured of asking that question, because the amiable is going to be more concerned about the team. So you may sit in the meeting and be like, I don't know what this has to do with me. But sometimes it's reading between the lines and understanding what that person is focused on. In the case of the expressive, you may walk in there hoping for like, here's what's good, here's what's bad, here's what needs to be improved. But with an expressive, it may be sort of an intertwining of all of these things together. So just asking summaries or asking a lot of clarifying questions. Like, I heard you talk about this. Could you tell me how that affects my performance or what I did well in that situation? Because it may be more of a narrative journey as opposed to like a structured bullet point. So knowing how to ask the right questions about, oh, I heard this. Could you clarify what that affects how I approach this in the future?
所以其实在明天的 EP Insights 单元，我们还会去 deep dive 一些更多，如果你今天是有一些 negative 的 performance review， 你应该要怎么样去回应。但是当然这个回应也包括了很多是 emotional 的一些转变，还有你要怎么去消化，还有甚至是怎么样有很聪明的方式在职场上面去让人家看到你的改变。So we're going to have all of that in tomorrow's episode.
Also, throughout the rest of the week and into next week, we'll continue covering the other styles. So if you haven't heard your style yet, don't worry. We'll get to how to handle a performance review. Or if you need a quick refresher, go back to August, check out all of our deep dives into the different styles to get a quick refresher on it, and then look through how does these communication styles fit into the performance review as we explore it through the rest of this month. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
The Executive Plus podcast is a Presentality Group production, produced and hosted by Sherry Fang and Nick Howard. You can search us on Facebook, 主管英文 Executive Plus. You can also find us on Instagram, Communication R&D, and email us at sherry@epstyleplus.com.